Welcome to The Voices That Propel Us, stories of justice, action, and community, a space where justice meets action and community voices rise. Each episode, we bring you stories from the front lines, changemakers, disruptors, and everyday heroes who are building a more just, equitable, and liberated world. This is more than a podcast. It's a call to listen, learn, and move together. You were just listening to music from the incredibly talented Stephen Kong. You can find him on Spotify and Bandcamp. Today's guest is Kendra Holmes, a transgender advocate, author, TEDx speaker, and dedicated public servant whose life is a powerful testament to authenticity, courage, and self-belief. After spending 4 decades navigating her gender identity, Karen embraced her true self and shared her journey in her memoir, 40 Years and Wandering No More, Loving My Life Being Transgender. Following more than 24 years of federal service, she now educates audiences across the country, including military, law enforcement, healthcare, government, and educational institutions, to foster understanding between transgender and cisgender communities. Recognized as one of LGBTQ Nation's top 50 successful transgender Americans, Karen continues to inspire others with her message that believing in yourself can change everything. Well, hello. Thank you so much for taking the time to share this platform with me. I'm so incredibly grateful and honored for you to share your story and your experiences here with me and my audience. But how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Denise, and thank you for having me on your show. Just like we had talking before we started here. I mean, I just feel this is going to be a great interview with you. So, yeah.
I think so too. You're such a wonderful person already, full of so much beauty. I could really tell that. And I'm also excited about this conversation. So just starting off for listeners meeting you for the first time, can you please introduce yourself and what do you most want people to understand about your journey?
Well, my name is Kendra Holmes, and I go by pronouns of she, her, and hers. My journey is absolutely fantastic, and I don't look at my journey as just from in the book. It's still going to keep on going from here on out. Mm-hmm. I actually transitioned October 1st of 2010, and prior to that, my name was Tony, and I worked for the federal government for 24 years and 4 months and some days. Doge helped me a little bit to say, okay, I'm going to retire this year rather than waiting to this year, which I wanted to do June 4th of this year. And it was heartening because I really wanted to use that word 25 years for the federal government. But with this administration, I just said, I can't do it anymore. And I was like, the way things are going with funding and everything else, I said, he's not going to touch my money. I'm just going to make sure I start transferring dollars and everything out like I did. And it worked out pretty good. When I was small, and the reason in the book is titled 40 Years and Wandering No More, Loving My Life Being Transgender. And the 40 Years and Wandering No More, people keep asking me about how did I come up with that title? And so at the age of 13, I started dressing in my mom's clothes and everything. And it was to the age of 53, 40 years later, that I actually transitioned full time and everything like that. And so that's where the 40 Years and Wandering No More came in. And it took me 40 years to figure this crap out. Right. And I am so happy. I wish I had kind of did it earlier at age, but I figure, I probably would have been this wild child if I did it any earlier. So I think the timing was perfect for me to do it when I did it. And I feel more mature in the fact that, I'm loving life the way it should be and got a good head on my shoulder to stay out of trouble and make sure I stay safe, which is very, very important. So in the book, I wanted to do 2 things. First of all, help the transgender community understand they can do it. They can make it. They can survive and knowing when the right time is, because everybody's journey timing is different. And so that's one aspect. And on the flip side, I wanted to help the cisgender community understand who we are, because they've got, especially from this administration, past Trump 001 and now 002, is a big difference in how they view us right now. And I wanted them to understand that we are not what you see in Jerry Springer show. We are police officers, firefighters, judges, lawyers, doctors, nurses, military, politicians. The gamut goes on. And so that's what I really wanted the cisgender community to understand. And I have gotten rave reviews from the cisgender community, from my church members to neighbors to people that you say, hey, I want to buy the book. And I just met like a guy last night at the Outback restaurant. Didn't tell him much about it. I gave him a little card, and he'll probably be surprised, but he seemed like he's going to go ahead and get it. So that's good.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. That's such a beautiful journey. And actually, I'd love to explore that with you further. I know that you talked about it a little before, but just wanted to hear you further elaborate it. So what finally gave you the courage to step fully into your authentic self at 53?
It was a conference that I went to in 2010. It was in June. And the conference is called the Philadelphia Trans Health Conference back then. Okay. And going there, just walking into the place, I mean, everybody's just enjoying themselves, having a good time. And I saw little kids, 5, 6, and 7 years old, having a blast playing and stuff. And their parents were there supporting them and just enjoying time with them. And I'm like, wow, that was interesting, And then I went to the workshops and stuff and, heard other transgender, stories. And I'm like, that is pretty cool. I said, oh my God, this is who I really am. And I didn't think, anymore about being a cross-dresser or anything like that. I went deeper in hearing the conversations and understanding what I was going through. And so I said, when I left that conference on Sunday, driving down from Philadelphia to Maryland, I was like a runaway freight train, wanting to do whatever I could do to transition on the job. And so that's what I did. And it took a while. I met a friend of mine at work who's also the attorney at the agency. And she said, let me talk to the director of civil rights and inclusiveness to tell them your story without telling your name. And when she reported back to me, she said she was in tears. And so I said, okay, I'll meet with her. And I told her the same story pretty much. And she was in tears again. And she said, let her talk to the CEO of the agency. And it came back with a review of do whatever it takes to make this a success. And I was like, wow. They said the only thing they wanted to do was wait 3 months so they could work up a game plan, how we could break it out to everyone at the agency from the East Coast to the West Coast and further, because our agency oversaw 47 state officers. And so the day we broke the news to everyone at the agency, it was done on the same day at the same time with everybody in attendance.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. And what gave you the courage and inspiration to put your life experiences in a book? Like, I could imagine that just being, at least for me, like being kind of scary, like being so vulnerable in such a public space. But from what it sounds like it's been so inspiring. But I was just wondering, like, what gave you that courage to be like, here's my story and I want to share it with the world?
Well, it took me like 14 years to finally put it in the book, because actually after because I transitioned October 10th of 2010, and it took me probably a year later that I started formulating and thinking about, I need to do a book, because other people were telling me I need to be speaking to the transgender community and helping them. Right. And when I was told that, I was like, I don't know about that. I need to learn more about who I am. And so once I did, I started speaking in 2011 at my first Transgender Day of Remembrance, which is November 20th. And I started doing that, and it just blossomed from there. And I kept saying, I want to do a book. I want to do a book, but how I'm going to do it and how am I going to, express it out. And I knew the content, but I still didn't know how to formulate it and stuff. And later down the road, probably like about maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I'm thinking, I want to do two things in this book. And I told you, help the transgender community. And then on the flip side, help the cisgender community understand.
Right.
And so it was weird. My aunt kept hounding me for 14 years. You need to write a book. You need to write a book. Yeah, I want to write a book, Auntie. I want to write a book.
Okay.
I didn't know what to do. So one day at church, doing prayer and worship, I put out to the church, I said, please help me find someone that can help me do edit my book or, be my editor and so on. And a person sent me an email from church and they gave me a name of Natasha Tynes. And I basically just said, okay, so I called her and it sounded really, really good. We connected very well. And Natasha said she was like Waze or Google Maps for me, okay, telling me how to go from A to B and make this turn, make that turn, make this turn, and so on. And so Natasha said, I want you to have this book done in 4 months, and I want 40,000 words.
Wow.
And I'm thinking in my head, is you crazy?
Right.
But I did do it in 3.5 months, and I did 41,000 words. And so it just, once I got started in it and stuff like that last year, it just really, there were moments that I just wasn't sure I wanted to deal with it. And it was very emotional, especially at the beginning of the book. It's the prologue, the cliff. And in that section of the book is telling, my readers that I literally, on a dark road at night, windy road, I stopped, pulled over, pulled all my clothes out of the trunk of the car and threw them over the cliff, and thinking I was killing what was inside at that time, Tony, which is me, Karen.
Right.
So finally, the book got out and done end of April of this year. And it's been doing really, really good. And like I said, I get a lot of comments and accolades from the cisgender community because they feel like they didn't know. And I totally get it that, because of this administration, things have been said about the transgender community, which is so wrong.
Yeah, actually, I had a question about that too. I'd love to hear your perspective, but what misconceptions about transgender people do you encounter most often or see most often going around right now?
Well, right now, a lot of times, when I'm speaking at conferences and stuff, people will say, who's my interest in? Is it men or women? And I tell them I'm still interested in women because I think, one, which is so funny when I say this at the conferences, I said, women just smell better. And all the ladies in the room are going, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and then I said, there are a couple of guys that I've seen or met, and I was like, he's kind of cute, and I'm like, and so I'll do that in the room, especially if it's like with the police and stuff like that, or federal government people. And I'm like, oh, there's a couple of guys in here that are kind of cute. And then you see everybody looking around. And so that's the one misconception. And then what I do is I break it down. I just say, hey, look, I'm, being transgender is who we are in our mind, heart, and spirit. It's got nothing to do with sexuality. A 5, 6, and 7-year-old kid has no idea what sex is all about. All they know is I'm a boy, I'm a girl. And so once I tell people that, the light switch goes on and they understand. I say, yeah, when we get older or whatever happens, that's when we start having feelings for whoever. And so, like I said, that's when they start to understand what it's all about, that it has nothing to do with sexuality at all. And that's the misconception there. And then the other one is trans women playing in cisgender women's sports. And I totally understand, but here's the thing. I tell people, because right now I've got no strength whatsoever. I mean, I can barely pick up a case of paper. And even last year I was like trying to pick up a 50-pound bag of melting ice because it was going to be snowing. and I could barely do it. I pushed it out of the car and dragged it on the ground to the garage and stuff.
Yeah.
And when you're on hormones, things start to feminize that person. They start to lose strength. My strength was pretty low anyway. I was like around 100. And men's testosterone level is anywhere from 300 to 1100. And women's are around 17 to like about maybe 30. And so that's a big difference. And I totally understand that. And I think that's where they're basing their information on about trans women playing in cisgender women's sports. And I'm like, yeah, put a boundary there. Let's say you have to be on hormones for at least a year and you're constantly getting checked of your testosterone level. It's like right now, Pete Hegseth is trying to do that with the military, making all the men do testosterone level testing and stuff. And I'm like, are you crazy? I mean, I would think that's a thing of trying to get rid of the trans women out of the military. But, no, he's going about it all wrong. And, he's kicking us out of the military anyway. I'm fully okay with the United States Veterans Reserve. Of course, I don't have to worry about that. But once I had my big surgery back in 2016, my testosterone level was pretty much none or whatever my surgeon said. And so, we look at those aspects. And what really makes me mad is they're not messing with the trans men. The trans men could play in men's sports, and it's not going to be an issue or problem. And they're taking testosterone to build their testosterone level in that. Yeah. So there's a big issue in regards to this. And I just wish they would leave us alone. And I played, when I was Tony, I played in co-ed softball games and stuff. And there's some girls that are really, really good that I played with. And even right now, I always switch over to the women's college softball teams from the different schools. And these girls, I said, man, you should be playing in the major league, right. Because you're that good and they're playing that well. So I think they need to talk to people like myself or other people that have taken the hormones or vice versa, the trans men taking the testosterone, because there's a difference, but you got to make sure you're doing the testing and give it a good year and then make the decision.
Right. And thank you for bringing that up. Actually, that's something that I want to talk with you about, because I feel like, the issue of transgender women competing in women's sport is such a hot topic right now. I think it's a heated debate, but I feel like when it comes to that, I feel like that's when people just aren't listening to each other or, having a lot of misconceptions. But what do you think it will take for people to have really open and honest dialogue with each other about this and start to make some progression forward?
I mean, whenever I go speak at some of these conferences, especially since it's been a big topic issue, especially when I'm talking to the majority of them are cisgender, and I tell them, my story, my thing of going through the hormones for a year, and after almost a year, my level of strength just went way down. And I tell you, the biggest audience I've had, because for the last 7 years until number 47 took over and got rid of DEI. I was going around the country for the last 7 years speaking to law enforcement officers, building that gap between the transgender community and law enforcement, building that bridge to connect and let each other know what's going on. And when I bring up the issue in regards to cis women in cisgender sports, they get it. They understand. And here again is somebody like myself telling them that this is the issue. And a lot of times when I go to some conferences that has a panel, I always thank the panel people on there that have gone to college to study on this stuff. They're experts, so they think they're experts, because experts are the ones like myself who live this life 24/7 a day. We're the ones that should be out there, or definitely be at the table when they're having these panel discussions, because we're doing it 24/7, and this is our life. You're only going there and studying, but you have no idea. It's like the same thing I was telling you about the testosterone level. They're basing their decisions on what trans women should be in cisgender women's sports based on the testosterone level for men and for women, and that's not fair. They need to keep talking to us.
Right. Thank you for sharing. And, you've shared something really powerful with me. I think it was either in your intro to me on Podmatch or your bio, but you've said that if you believe in something, you may achieve it, but if you believe in yourself, you will. So can you please share, what does this mean to you, and what can other people learn from this too, if they're also struggling with their own identity?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that's been built in me for years. And a lot of times, I believe in something that I should do. And it's funny, I had this conversation with a really good friend of mine this morning, that's something she's trying to do. And I told her, I said, look, and I talk about this in my book, if you believe in something, you may get it. But if you believe in yourself, you will get it. So if you believe that you can do what it takes to be the best, then go for it. It's like when I joined the Maryland Defense Force, which supports the Maryland National Guards. I just went out, like, it's for IET, which is entry training, initial entry training. I just basically did everything I could as a soldier, exercising, marching, you do this, you do that. And at graduation, I got leadership award for that. And I didn't think that, but I was like, wow, that's great. I can believe in myself, and I know I can go out there and lead these soldiers. And I don't want to say these men, although it's very high in the military as far as leadership with men. They think they can run everything, but there's good female soldiers out there that are fantastically well. And to take interest is other leadership that needs to say, hey, somebody down there who's lower than me has a good chance of being a good leader. And I was at this one event that was up in Baltimore. They had the battleships come in there. And the battleships, we had to escort the people from one location of the parking lot to the docks, so they could get on there and tour the battleships. The first few hours, I'm telling you, it was chaos. And my captain had disappeared and went somewhere. And I'm sure he was doing something as far as with, work. And so I said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to change this around and do this and that. And the rest of the day, it was smooth sailing as far as, what we were doing and getting the escorts over with the people and stuff. And so the next day, this colonel comes in. He wasn't there the first day, but the second day he comes in and starts, really barking off orders that he wants to do this and that. And another colonel jumped in and said, no, Corporal Holmes, because I was a corporal then, has got it. She's got it all squared away. She's got everything running smooth. And he backed off. And it takes somebody like that to step up and support women that are doing good things out there. Because and they didn't know I was a transgender. And here's the interesting part. And I joined in 2011. In 2012, by the Maryland Defense Force and the Maryland State Guard Association, I got NCO Soldier of the Year, which is non-commissioned officer.
Okay.
And the female soldiers are coming up to me going, great job, you're doing it for us. And I'm like, yeah, I am, but I'm also doing it for the transgender community, which I can't talk about, because this is who I really am. And then the following year, in 2013, by the State Guard Association of the United States, I got Soldier of the Year of the country. And here female soldiers are coming up again going, great job, you're doing it for us. And I'm like, yeah, but I can't talk about it. And the thing is, that's believing in self.
Yeah.
And that's where it comes from. If you believe in something, you may get it. But if you believe in yourself, you will get it.
Right. I love that. That's so beautiful. And thank you for bringing that up too, because I would love to talk with you about the different positions that you've held. So you've served in government, the military, emergency response organizations, and community service roles. So how has service shaped who you are?
Oh, wow. I've been volunteering and doing service work ever since that I was Tony. And
Okay.
so it started out then that I was doing that. And so
Hmm.
it carried over to who I am today as Tony. And I tell people that I've been infected with a virus, and that
Okay.
virus is called volunteer. And so I'm
Uh-huh.
trying to infect everybody out there of
Uh-huh.
who I am and what I'm doing and stuff like that. And so, yeah,
Nice.
it's absolutely been great. Um, because it's so funny. I look at the chart that I did when I spoke at did my TED talk, and
Uh-huh.
there's the side here that I showed on the screen. That these are the awards Tony got, and then
Hmm.
on the next screen it comes up and I said, and these are the ones that I got.
I
And I
love
was like,
that.
I got more awards than Tony did.
I
and
love that.
and it's so funny because when I did
Yeah.
the TED talk, I brought up two cases of awards that I got. And
Uh-huh.
one was in 2003. I got the Willis Green Community Service Award, and
Okay.
that was as Tony. And
Uh-huh.
then in 2014, I got the award again, the Willis Green Community Service Award as Karen. So
Okay.
people, on that day of the 24th, they're like, didn't you get that award before? And I said,
Mhm.
no, Tony got it in 2003.
I
I
love
got
that.
it now.
I love
And
that.
that just goes to show. And I try to tell a lot of people, even if I was Tony again, the
Hmm.
thing is, just because you got one award one time doesn't mean you have to stop and I got it now. I don't need to
Right.
perceive. I want to keep going. I want to keep doing. And like when I was with Park Police
Hmm.
as a volunteer, I got two Commanders Award and two Volunteer of the Year awards. And that just tells you I'm not stopping at where I received one thing and I
Right.
don't need to do anything else for the rest of my life. No, I want to keep going. I want to keep
Yeah.
getting more awards. It's almost like Taylor Swift, all the awards that she gets. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Actually, I'd love to talk with you about another recognition that you received. So, you were recently honored in Platform Magazine alongside 31 other women from around the world. So, what did
Mhm.
that recognition mean to you personally?
Oh, wow. It's the magazine is the Platform Magazine, and
Hmm.
it's an international magazine. And when I was honored in that magazine among 31 other women, it was from around the world, women
Yeah,
from
I
the
love
world.
that. That's so
And
cool.
the biggest thing about it, I was the only transgender woman in that magazine among those 31 other women. So I kudos goes off to Judy Stabley, who's the CEO and the owner of the Platform Magazine. And to me, when I go speak at conferences and other events, I try to tell people, especially the young trans kids.
Hmm.
I don't want to say trans women because trans boys too, is
Right.
I tell them, build yourself a platform. So when you tell people that you're transgender or non-binary or, anything like that, they
Hmm.
don't care. They won't care. And the thing
Right.
is, I tell, like, build that platform. Because when I told people at Red Cross, CERT, which is Community Emergency Response, RSVP, which is Retired Seniors Volunteer Program, I said, I got
Mhm.
something to tell you. And they gave me this funny look like, well, what are you going to tell me? And I said, I'm transgender and I'm going to be transitioning full time as a woman in 2 weeks. And they went, whew, I thought you were going to leave the organization.
Oh, wow.
I said, I'm thinking, did you talk to the other person that I told this to?
Hmm.
None of them knew each other, but they all had the same answer. Whew,
Wow.
I thought you were going to leave the organization. And you know what that tells me? They valued what I was bringing to
Right.
their organization and not that I'm transgender. And that's what I try to instill in any transgender person, but mostly the youth, because the youth are going to be taking
Hmm.
over and we need them to step up because I'm getting old.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to be pulling 70 years old in
Oh,
November. And it's like, I need to
wow.
hand the rings to somebody else. And I've met some young people like that. I do an award every year called the Karen Holmes Flame Award, and I present that to either an individual or a group that deserves it because they're supporting the trans community and reaching out and doing what they can.
Right. And what kind of changes would you most like to see over this next decade? I love how you're talking about passing on the torch or the younger generation. But yeah, what would you love to see?
I would love to see us just get along, that people understand what the trans community is all about. Like I said earlier, their misconception from seeing Jerry Springer. We're not those characters on there, and we're doing great things. And I just met a month ago, and actually I was hoping that this one trans girl was going to be on the council here in Montgomery County, and she didn't make it, but she came very close. And then I met somebody from Pennsylvania who's a mayor, who's transgender, and I'm like, this is great. We're doing great things out there. And there's one that's even in the Senate here. And so, we just need to change the atmosphere, get people mind out of, and they make it like it's a religious thing. And to me, I tell people all the time, at the Last Supper, who was Jesus having dinner with? And then I said, he had dinner with everybody, Right. And so that ought to tell you. And that brings me up to this situation I had. I was going to 2 churches last year and for the last 3 years because I liked the other church and stuff and because of the worship team. And the associate pastor comes up and says, can we talk to you? And I'm saying, sure. So we go back to the office, and here I've been there for 3 years. Senior pastor's in there, and I'm like, okay, what's this all about? Thinking. And the senior pastor, after chit-chatting for a couple minutes, he goes, a couple of the ladies here said that they saw you going into the ladies' bathroom. And I went, and did you tell them I not had the big surgery and stuff? And so the conversation went on, and I just left there really totally bummed. And finally, driving an hour and a half to a friend of mine's house, who, matter of fact, the friend I was talking to this morning, she's like, you need to leave that church. When I had my CEO and director for the Women's Veterans United Committee Incorporated group, she was here, was doing a podcast with her. And when I brought up that story about the church, she goes, oh, you need to leave that church. I mean, they were going off, and I said, yeah. And I wrote a nice page letter email, and I sent it to him. That the incident happened that Sunday. I sent the email on that Friday saying I will not be returning back as well. They sent me back a real short 3 sentences of maybe like 15 words saying, good luck, hope you find, another church and all this kind of stuff. And that was it. And, that was last year. And so I said this year, when the book came out, and I didn't mention their name in the book, I just mentioned the circumstances. I sent the book to the pastor, mailed it to him, and said, I hope he reads it. And it's been over a month, and I haven't heard anything about the book, from him. And so it's like, okay, I wish he had guts enough to at least, apologize or, the churches, there's so many trans people who are so want to be fed by God's word and stuff, and they don't because they're getting shunned out of the church. I used to videotape a couple of the churches that I would go to, and I would have at least 125 trans people on there watching the service every week. And I'm like, they want to be fed, but here we've got, parishioners out there pushing them out the door. And for me, what got me to be a born again Christian is the fact that I love music and worship at one of the churches got me to be born again. And it was so funny because I actually went back and visited that church probably 4 years after I transitioned. And so me and one of my newer pastors that I was going to have, We're both sitting there midway in the middle of the church. And one of the people came up to the seat and sat right in front of me. It was a gentleman. I
Okay.
played softball with this guy for 5 years. He was the pitcher. I was his shortstop. And so during that time,
Mm-hmm.
it was, he looks back and he goes, do you have a brother named Tony? And I looked at my pastor and I was going, should I tell him? And she goes,
Yeah.
yeah. So I told him that I was
Yeah.
Karen and I used to be Tony. And he goes, wow, you look good. And he goes, and we chatted for a while. And he goes, let's see if my wife recognizes you. And she didn't.
Okay.
And I said, I would have loved to have been the fly on the windshield inside,
Right.
listening to the conversation
Yeah.
as they went home. But yeah, that was a great moment there. And I didn't go back at all. But I loved it because that's what got me to be born again, because of the fact I loved the
Wow.
worship team.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I know you mentioned earlier too how your work has like gotten positive responses from cisgendered folks as well. So I'm just wondering, like, how can folks be better allies and be in solidarity with, folks who are trans and helping to create more of these supportive environments and places of compassion? I'd love to hear your thoughts on like how people can be better allies for the communities.
That's a great question. When I went down to Joplin, Missouri back in 2012 with the tornado,
Mhm.
I met one of the people from Red Cross there, and we
Mhm.
were really good friends and stuff. And so she even said she did a bed and breakfast thing at her place and stuff and invited me
Mhm.
to come. And so I did. And in the conversation, she was giving me like clothes, jewelry and stuff. And finally, I'm like, why is she giving me all this stuff?
Yeah.
And I said, Linda, oh, she had mentioned during that time
Mhm.
that her cousin was transgender that lived in Italy
Okay.
and she loved her to death. And I'm like, great, this is the time I can tell her.
Yeah.
And that opened up the door for me to tell her that I was transgender.
Mhm.
And I was wondering, that she was giving me this stuff. And she goes, and when I told her that I was transgender, she went, and, like,
Yeah.
it's no big deal.
Yeah.
And so to me, if you know somebody out there that's transgender, it would be great that you could open up a conversation and say, hey, I've got a friend or a relative that's transgender and I love them to death. We go out and do this and that. That
Mhm.
might open that door for that person to say, hey, I'm transgender too and stuff. And
Yeah.
they might understand. I know, like when I was on an airplane ride to Joplin,
Mhm.
um, I was telling this person, that lady that was sitting right beside me while I was going, because I was part of the cadre team
Mhm.
with my agency to respond and be co-partnered with FEMA. And so I was telling her why I was going there, what I was going to be doing, and blah, blah, blah. And something just said to tell her I was transgender.
Mhm.
And I did. And she goes, you are? You're my new best friend. And so stuff like that just really opens up a door. And for me telling my story like that, it's great. And it's so funny because when I did my TED talk, I totally did my story of introducing myself totally different than I
Mhm.
did before, telling people, oh, yeah, I do. I work for the federal government. I'm a safety officer. I do this, I do that, I do this, I do that, volunteering and stuff. Oh, by the way, I'm transgender. And, they're like surprised. They're like, you do all that and you're trans, And it's such a big surprise to people. And actually, TEDx, they had me switch the coaches, and
Mhm.
it's gone really well.
Wonderful. And what kind of legacy do you hope to leave behind, through everything that you've been doing?
I want people to know that what I do is not for the glory
Yeah.
things. I want people to understand I did it to help. I have a servant heart. I want people to understand I'm
Mm.
there. I've had people that have told me, hearing my story or seeing things, they go, you saved my life. And
Mm.
to me, that's
Yeah.
all the glory I need, because I want to make sure that if a trans person out there or non-binary person is struggling, they see my story, they hear it, that they will change the way they think things out. They'll contact somebody that can get them through whatever they're going through. So, yeah.
Right. That's so beautiful. And thank you so much for your time today. I had such a wonderful time talking with you. I learned so much from you too. But as we're wrapping up, I'd love for you to speak directly to the listeners and just seeing if there's tangible things that they could do even this week. So if our listeners could take one action this week to build a more understanding, compassionate community, what would you encourage them to do?
Really, like at the beginning and what you talked about it from the book, is if you believe in yourself,
yeah,
you will get it. Just don't believe in something, believe in yourself, because that's going to get you over the hump. I mean, when I believed in myself, when I finally did the transition, that's what got me through this journey that I'm on. And trust me, this journey is going to keep on going. When I had the big surgery, there were obstacles that were popping up to me all the time. And I was like, is this something I should be doing? But then again, here again, I'm believing in myself, and that's what got me through it. And I would never change anything out of my life at this point. And just being out there and serving the best way I can to help other people. Yeah, that's all I want to do.
Okay, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And just lastly, how can people find you if they'd like to connect with you or even get a copy of your book?
If they want a copy, which I hope they do,
Yes, yeah.
Just go to Amazon and put in Karen Holmes, and it'll come right on up, and they can go and purchase the book from there. And then to contact me, if they really want to get in touch with me and they're having any type of issues, please email me at kkholmes, that's HOLMES, 1956 at gmail.com. And then I have a personal website, which we're going to eventually be fixing and changing over to my branding. It's kkholmes.com, and you can go on that website and see things that we've done in the past as far as speaking engagements, things that are coming up in the future, all types of good things. And just if on the email, if you send it to me, mention you heard me on the show, you want to talk, you're running through this problem. What is my advice? But I'm not a therapist, but I will give you real life situations and hopefully get you going down the right path instead of taking the wrong one.
Right. That's so beautiful. And thank you again. You're such a beautiful person putting out so much beauty into the world. And I really hope that people can hear you and start to have more compassion for other folks. And we can go beyond just these labels and everything. But I truly hope that we could stay connected with each other. And I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. Okay.
All righty. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for being here and tuning in to Voices That Propel Us, stories of justice, action, and community. Your presence in this movement matters. If today's conversation moved you, share it, talk about it, and keep the work going. Together, we're not just imagining change, we're making it. Until next time, stay bold, stay grounded, and stay in the fight.
Every time I feel so mad and sad and bad, I say to myself, relax, lean back.